I will never forget that morning.
It was a beautiful morning. Sun was out.
Because that was primary day for the mayoral election.
I was working for a nonprofit organization and was giving a presentation. I was probably about 5 minutes into my presentation and a gentleman just stood up, completely interrupted me and said, "We have to turn on the TV."
At or about 8:45, 8:48 that morning, the first calls came in that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. In my precinct, we had 162 officers assigned there. Of those 162, 21 were sergeants, and I was one of the 21. We had 8 lieutenants and 2 captains, and that morning at that time, there were only 3 sergeants on duty.
My precinct, you're able to see right from the steps all the way into Manhattan, clearly the Twin Towers. So when we told that the Twin Towers were hit, you know, we just, okay, yeah, they were hit. What were they hit with? No one knew what happened.
And myself and another sergeant, Tom Larson, who was senior to me, took over control of the command. I took over control of patrol operations and started to assign personnel to go into Manhattan.
Because we shut down every single major artery throughout the whole city. There was no cars coming in, coming out. All airspace was shut down within a half hour.
And I just remember the look on my officer's face, Officer Rivera, when I now was retasking him from going to court to being part of the 1 in 8 response team, 1 sergeant, 8 police officers to get into a van and go. And it was a gut-wrenching decision because he wasn't just my officer, he was my friend. And I was sending him into an unknown, uncertain situation.
It was surreal. You know, the first thing I did was call my wife to say, please just get the kids out of school. She goes, why would I do that? That's not, you know, what happened? And she was asking questions because she really didn't understand it either. I said, listen, I won't be able to do anything today not knowing that my kids, because we don't know what's happening. We don't know if we're gonna get attacked again.
My son was in daycare at the time, and his daycare was right next to a federal building. And all I could think of is, I just need to go get him. Not that I could do really anything to protect if something was gonna happen, but I wanted to get him out.
My wife had gotten a phone call into me hours later after trying and all the lines being tied up with everyone calling, trying to find their loved ones, and telling me that she was leaving work and going to grab the kids and was going back upstate New York where she's from and was wondering what time she was going to be meeting me to go. And then having to tell her that I couldn't go, but I understood her taking the kids and leaving and just wished her a safe drive. And the dead silence on the phone after that when she realized that I wasn't going with her, that I couldn't.
That, you know, just having military planes and flying all over New York, and then you hear the Pentagon and then Pennsylvania. It was like, we thought it was going to be continuous attacks. We had no idea what was coming.
Unfortunately, I did have an uncle that was at the Pentagon during the attack. We did not know if he was actually in the Pentagon at the time or if he was not. And of course, you couldn't get through to any of the phone lines because they were all jammed up. And so we did not know until a couple of days later that he was there and perished.
And then when the first tower fell, then it was just reality hit.
To lose 2,730 some odd people in an instant like that, 343 of them being firemen, 37 working for the Port Authority Police Department, and 23 of our own people, some of which were people I went through the academy with or worked with in some capacity or another. That sudden loss of all of those people is something that I'll never forget.
So one of the things that I probably remember the most that came from that unfortunate tragedy is the kindness that people showed and the unity that we all came together.
That day and the weeks that followed really drove home the appreciation that the people of Long Island City and Woodside had for us.
It was amazing, the outpour from the community. It was unbelievable. Something I'd never seen in my life and probably never see again.
Regardless of your political beliefs, regardless of your religious beliefs, none of that mattered. It was about supporting one another and being there for one another.
All along West Side Highway, both sides, was civilians just lined up everywhere, clapping, cheering, you know, trying to give you food, socks, anything you needed beyond what you needed.
Daily, for weeks on end, just dropping off plates of food, flowers to say thank you, to mourn with us as the names of the people that we lost were coming through.
There was a church across the street from the 109 precinct, and they held a separate mass and invited us all there. They didn't know they were helping us. They did.
Story after story like that, and none any easier to tell than the last.
People come from around the United States to just try to help and get on the pile. So you honestly did brick by brick and concrete and just pass the bucket brigade. The first couple weeks you're going every day. And then your schedule was you go every other day. So it was a 16-hour tour. Every day you got home, you had to get everything off you. I didn't want to walk in the house with everything.
And so by the time, the outgoing platoon would relieve the incoming platoon, you were there 14, 15 hours a day. I was only home long enough to eat dinner and go to bed. And if not for my family being the support that they were, I don't know how it would have turned out.
I moved from New York, finally sold my house this year. I've been down here 6 years, and my boots were in storage. My children put in a box for me, and they sent it to me in Florida. So those boots I never got rid of, just to remind me of that day.
September 11, 2001 is something that I will never forget.
I will never forget. I will never forget what happened that day.
I will never forget.
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 We will never forget.
Our hearts go out to all of the survivors and the families of those we lost that day. We have made it our company's mission to take care of first responders from that day forward. And since then, we have sponsored free vacations and a multitude of charities that support our first responders and those who are impacted by the acts of terror that have terrorized this world. We are proud to be part of the Westgate family, and we ask all of you to do everything you can possible to recognize and support those who keep us safe every day.